All righty, welcome back to another episode of Two Plane Sports. Today is Friday, February 3rd. We made it through the week and we are back for another episode. Today we're going to be talking about a few guys that visited Oklahoma and then a high school out on the West Coast, or maybe not the West Coast, but Las Vegas. Got three offers for three different kids on the same day. I think we know that high school maybe by the name of Bishop Gorman. Have you ever heard of that place before, Jose?
Sounds pretty familiar.
Sounds pretty familiar. So, and then also what we're going to be talking about is on Twitter. We're recording this on Thursday. So today, Gerald McCoy, Kenny Stills, we're joining in on the fun. Gerald McCoy is basically saying that he is willing to volunteer and work for free as a recruiter. Top guys, he said he'd fly himself wherever he needs to be. And then Kenny Stills jumped in with basically talking about all the Cali boys that hosted everyone and got all these top recruits. What do you think? I think it's pretty cool. I don't know why you wouldn't use Gerald McCoy as a recruiting person and defensive lineman. I mean, arguably one of the best defensive linemen, definitely out of the Oklahoma, but in the NFL for a very long time.
Yeah, I feel like that's just kind of again a gift that this staff is kind of falling on, and hopefully they take advantage of it. And I think it would. I feel like as a player, maybe when you're 17 or 18, you might not see it that valuable, but like looking at it at our age in our mid 20s, I feel like it's pretty cool to have someone that's been so far. It's been so long since he left Oklahoma, the University of Oklahoma. It's been forever since he's been there. Now I know he grew up an OU fan. It was pretty much the place that it seemed like he was destined to play football at. But those last coaching staff, it didn't seem like many players were very involved. There wasn't that college atmosphere that other big time programs have, like in Alabama. Bama guys always make sure they represent their school, and obviously they're winning a lot. But it's not like Oklahoma's been losing. It was one bad season, so these guys just haven't been as involved. And I think it's pretty cool to see someone so passionate about wanting to rebuild it outside of the coaching staff. Because you would assume they might support from afar and maybe come in every once in a while when asked. But Gerald McCoy, if he doesn't get an invite to every single recruiting event, every single weekend where they're going to have a big, big turnout like this one here in a month in early March, I would be surprised if he's not there. If his schedule allows it, seems like a pretty surefire thing he would show up to try to get in the ear of some of these defensive linemen.
You would think, and that's where Oklahoma is trying to recruit. And, obviously he's got some familiarity with Coach BV. I mean, it's not like, Lincoln Riley, who wasn't involved with Gerald McCoy at all. And a lot of these older players had no connection to Lincoln Riley. Now, obviously, some of the younger ones, like a Mark Andrews and others like that, do have connections. But where does Oklahoma recruit at the highest of levels? It's defensive line and defensive end. And you have a guy like Gerald McCoy who made a boatload of money in the NFL, a model picture of what you're trying to convince these kids that Oklahoma can do for them. And you have proof and you have a guy that wants to be involved. I don't see why he wouldn't be involved. And then same with Kenny Stills. I mean, Kenny Stills, I'm not saying he's the best receiver in the NFL, but he was electric and he's had a solid, really long career in the NFL. Has made quite a bit of money as a wide receiver. Now, Oklahoma's got wide receivers in the NFL, and that's not really much of a shock. It's not like you just have one guy to cling to. I'm not saying that Oklahoma only has one guy to cling to in the NFL along the defensive line, at least recently. Gallimore's still playing, and you've got a few other defensive tackles like Perion Winfrey in there, but no one like a Gerald McCoy. I mean, when you look around the NFL, you look at Alabama and you've got Quinnen Williams and all those other guys around, and then you look at Georgia like Jordan Davis with the Eagles, and they've got guys around the NFL that are making great money, some of the best defensive tackles in the league. You need to bring Gerald in to basically say, hey, it's possible here too.
Yeah. and not just like the money, the obviously the money probably would is something that these guys are thinking about already in the future, but where they get drafted. There's a big difference between being a first rounder and being a, day three pick or even undrafted free agent for sure. So Gerald can speak to how everything that he learned at Oklahoma and how he was able to translate that into being one of the better defensive tackles during his career up until the end there. I know he struggled with injury towards the end of his career, but he was not a guy that interior offensive lineman wanted to go up against every week.
Probably still don't. Most people probably still won't want to go up against him. I know he's what 34, about to be 35. Defensive tackles, that's getting up there in age, but I mean he still's got some great talent, and I'm not sure if he's planning a return or what he's planning to do, but I guess we'll wait and see what ends up happening.
It would be
So.
cool if they could find like a role for him. If he would want to coach, that'd be awesome. Obviously, it's not every player's dream to coach, but if he wants to recruit, maybe find a role for him within the recruiting department, just to try to keep him as involved as possible. Because that's especially guys that he played at Oklahoma with and kind of overlapped years. And there's plenty of guys with plenty of success in the NFL that he was friends with in college, and even guys that he played in the NFL with that might have not had connections to Oklahoma.
And if he doesn't make it back in the league, one reason or another, maybe he steps away or maybe he just doesn't make a team, I'd imagine he's going to be looking for something to do. And why not just go back to your alma mater and start helping out? I mean, he's not like he's hurting for money. He's just probably wanting something to do and wanting to give back and help out. So pretty cool thing. Pretty cool thing. And that's something that it seems like the big takeaway with this staff is it's family and people are bought in and it's one big unit, and it's pretty good. So we've talked a little bit, I think it was on Monday's episode, where we talked about some of the recent visitors from last weekend. And obviously we didn't make it through all of the visitors because there were so many of them. And so on this video, we're going to be talking about 3 more visitors that were there. And then we're going to be talking about some new offers that Oklahoma handed out. So the first guy we'll talk about is Devon Mitchell, 6'4", 230-pound tight end from Allen, Texas, 2025, 5-star, #1 tight end in the class. Kind of hard to believe we're already talking about 2025, but that's the way 2023 felt a couple of years ago anyway. So Devon Mitchell, former teammates with quarterback Mike Hawkins, and I guess we could also lump this into Mike Hawkins discussion as well. Obviously, Hawkins has not committed to Oklahoma or committed anywhere at this point. He's not sure when he's going to commit to either OU, Arkansas, or TCU. But Devon Mitchell and Mike Hawkins are extremely close. And I feel like if once Mike Hawkins pulls the trigger, hopefully it's Oklahoma, I feel like Devon Mitchell, I'm not saying that he's going to commit tomorrow, but he's got that kind of friendship with Mike Hawkins that you could get Devon Mitchell maybe to commit to you earlier than most 5-star tight ends would. What do you think?
If he committed if Mike were to commit to Oklahoma, I don't think that the staff would be. Oklahoma would definitely be leaders for Devon Mitchell. And it seems like they're in a really good spot for his commitment, but I would not expect a 2025 kid to commit to Oklahoma until next year, like 2024, just because of how the staff recruits. But that's not a bad thing. With Devon, he would be a huge addition. Clearly, I mean, as a 2025 guy being rated a 5-star, there's very few of them when you're this far away from your graduating year. Typically, you don't start really gaining 5-stars in a whole class or really very many ranked kids until they really start hitting their junior year, because that's when they're expected to be more impactful players for their high schools. Just kind of how it works. He's already been impactful. Last year, he had over 700 yards on like a little over 30 catches. Dude is a good receiver. I think that the one thing with tight ends that's tough to evaluate for a lot of coaches is, are they just receivers or can they do the dirty work that we need a tight end to do? meaning blocking. Can you, can you keep up with these stronger defensive linemen? And it's tough to evaluate that from high school level to a college level. So you just want to be able to see his frame start filling out as he gets older. It's not like he's a slender guy right now, but definitely doesn't look like a college level tight end at the moment. I think he's only 16, so he still has plenty of time to fill out his frame and get heavier, get stronger. Definitely got to look out for him. I mean, if I think we're in a better position now with Mike Hawkins than we were before this junior day because of the news of Tommy Reese being the pretty much seems like he's kind of secured the OC job at Alabama. Apparently, he was on campus today, going through facilities. It's probably as close as Alabama's been to getting an OC since Bill O'Brien left. So the Levy stuff seems to be pretty settled. I'm sure that he communicated that with Mike last week, but at this point, even the rumors are starting to die.
Finally. That's all I gotta say is finally. And talking about, stats as a sophomore, and I want people to sit back, and I'm sure most of our viewers know somewhat of Texas football, but Allen High School is one of the premier football programs in the state of Texas. And for him to come in as a sophomore, averaged 22 yards a catch. So he had 726 yards, 36 catches, 22 yards a catch, and 9 touchdowns as a sophomore. And he was the Texas District 5 6A first team selection as a sophomore. That's extremely impressive at the level of high school football that you're playing at. And obviously the offers represent his talent. I mean, he's got, according to 247, he's got 28 offers sitting there already. He doesn't even put pen to paper until the earliest is nearly 2 years away, and he's already got nearly 30 offers. So obviously a lot of programs see a lot of potential with him. And the whole Mike Hawkins thing, I did see that Tommy Reese report. I kind of wonder, once the offensive coordinator has been signed and sealed for, assuming it's Tommy Reese or someone else for Alabama, at that point, do you see Mike Hawkins come out and make an announcement of saying, hey, okay, I'm committing on X date now? Or do you just see him drop an edit and just say, I'm committed? That's what I'm curious of, is how he's going to go about this now that he's kind of delayed it. Does he schedule something, or does he just drop an edit and say, I'm in?
I think if Levy would have never been rumored to be potentially Alabama's offensive coordinator, he would have already done it. But because of that, it opened Kendall Briles' door with TCU. I think TCU is going to make it interesting. Honestly, would not surprise me if it lasts for another month before he makes a commitment. If he goes to the next Oklahoma Junior Day or whatever the event's going to be in March, I would assume that's where he's committing. Probably just early March. I'm sure TCU is going to have another event sometime next month as well. So look out for where he visits. If he ends up going to Oklahoma over TCU, if they happen to be on the same weekend, it seems like a pretty fair reason to think he's a lock as a Sooner.
Yeah, and I would assume, I mean, I'm not sure, but I wonder if Oklahoma will offer his brother Malik Hawkins. You might see that offer
I think
coming
he
out
did.
here. Did it
Did they
officially
not?
get
Pretty sure they
offered?
did.
Yeah,
I know
they
he was
might
there on
have.
campus, and some guys left with offers. And I think he was one of them, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, he might have been. I'm not 100% sure. I can't quite remember if he did. But anyway, if they didn't offer him, I would imagine that they will. I think he's talented in his own. I don't think it's one of those deals that you're just offering just to get his brother. I think he's talented. I mean, it's just like Eli Bowen with Peyton Bowen. I mean, they're both talented players, and it's not like you're just offering one just because. So moving on from, talking about the quarterback tight end duo in the 24 and 25, we'll move to the defensive side of the ball. And we'll talk about Peyton Pierce. And we've talked about Peyton Pierce a handful of times on this show over the last year or so. And obviously, it's becoming more and more involved, with signing day only being 8 months or 10 months away or whatever it is. So Peyton Pierce, 6'1", 225-pound linebacker from Lucas, Texas, 2024 4-star, number 15 linebacker in the class. He's a top 200 player, 164 according to 247, and his composite's 152. He made a visit up to Oklahoma last year's. Actually, this is 21 stats. I mean, he had 131 tackles in 2021, 6 sacks, 21 tackles for loss. So he's all over the place. It looks like he also went down to TCU and made a visit with them. He recently got an offer from Ohio State, Utah. So obviously bigger programs are picking him up. And it seems like right now it's an OU Notre Dame race. I would imagine from social media, it appears that his visit went pretty well. I don't expect a commitment tomorrow by any means. I wouldn't be surprised if it's sometime this summer. I kind of think that Oklahoma's going to get hot like they did last summer, in June or whatever it was, where they're picking up a lot of commitments, and the majority of their commitments will come this summer. I think he could be one of those guys. What do you think?
Yeah, I could see it being early summer, even late spring. This is a guy where as a Sooner fan, I feel like this is one of the few guys where you're super comfortable at where OU is sitting in his recruitment with all the connections he has with Oklahoma, with how many times he's been to Oklahoma over the last year. It seems like it's going to be tough for really anyone to beat OU for his commitment. I know Notre Dame made it interesting after a visit that he took. I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago now, but I don't know. It doesn't seem very likely that he goes anywhere but Oklahoma. And there's very few recruits that really Oklahoma fans should feel about that, would have that sentiment about. And David Stone is not one of them, in my opinion, but Peyton Pierce is a guy that seems like he's going to be a leader for the recruiting process here in the 2024 class.
Yeah, and someone that he's extremely talented. He's got Oklahoma ties, so you've got to feel pretty good. But again, I feel like that Oklahoma and Notre Dame are recruiting similar type players, similar type values, and the way they're going about the recruitment. It seems like that they're appealing to the same crowd, and there's nothing wrong with that because Notre Dame is a great program and obviously extremely elite when it comes to academics and historical football. But I just think that obviously Oklahoma one-upped Marcus Freeman with Peyton Bowen, and can he do it again, or can Venables do it again? I think so, but we're going to find out.
Well, now that he has to see if he does lose his offensive coordinator, who's going to replace him, and how is their offense going to do? It's not like they were amazing last year, but sometimes it was keeping up with for the defense. Sometimes it wasn't like the defense was shutting everyone down every week.
Yeah, true. So we'll see. I mean, again, I feel good. It's just going down, just staying the course, not getting too high, not too low. And basically what's happening is he's got a couple crystal balls in, 2 for Oklahoma, 1 for Notre Dame. And I assume a lot of people that are watching this can probably guess who the Notre Dame crystal ball is, and it's Tom Lloyd, and it's the other 2 are Brandon Drum and Parker Thune. So we've seen this story before. One side's being told one thing, and the one side's being told the other. And I guess it's just going to be a source off at this point. So
pretty much.
That's the thing, is just who do you trust? And, I guess you just got to trust your sources. So moving on to another linebacker, and this seems to be a guy that is a quick rising, a fast rising prospect, Ty Anthony Smith, 6'1", 202-pound linebacker from Jasper, Texas, 2024 3-star, So he's a little bit lower ranked. One of Emmett Jones' first stop was at Jasper High School. And I did some Jose Twitter detective work, and then I saw that, and then I went through and who is Oklahoma offered out of Jasper High School. And I'm pretty sure Emmett Jones went by and saw Ty Anthony Smith. And, with that being one of his very first stops, at least publicly on social media, it just goes to show that obviously Emmett Jones is recruiting the Texas area really well, but the importance that they're putting on a player like Ty Anthony Smith. Smith just picked up an offer from Alabama this week, so he's an extremely fast rising guy. Already has 22 offers. Oklahoma hosted him for a visit, and we actually talked with him. It seemed like it went really well. And I'm not saying anywhere near a commitment or anything like that, but he seemed to be really impressed, and it seemed like that Oklahoma is going in the right direction. So I would imagine, he never said about for sure one way or another about visiting. I don't remember, but I would imagine he'll come back on campus at some point. What do you think?
Yeah. With how fast he's rising, it seems like it would be foolish for him to make a commitment anytime soon. His his stock just keeps going up, and as these camps in the off season, as he attends more of them, I'm sure his stock is going to continue to rise. He'll start picking up more offers, stop picking, getting more invitations to junior days and summer events for recruiting. This is one I could see go pretty much until the beginning of his senior season. But yeah, Oklahoma, Emmett Jones, that kind of just shows the importance in how Oklahoma is prioritizing the state of Texas. It's not like Emmett Jones is a wide receivers coach and Ty Anthony Smith is a linebacker. They just want to make sure that these kids are getting to know the staff, getting to know the values that Oklahoma wants to instill in their players and how they're going to develop them as men and football players. And I'm sure Jones is able to communicate that.
I'm sure he is. And, this could be a guy. I'm not saying he's going to be like PJ Adebore, where he comes up as a 3-star and launches to a 5, but I think the expectation should be a 4-star after this year. I mean, the way that he's got the natural ability and the momentum that he's building, obviously he's showing out at camps. Programs are liking him. Recruiting services are liking him. So I'd imagine this is a guy that could get his 4-star with some solid play early in the season. And some obviously you got summer camps coming up too, 7-on-7 and everything else. You could see him being a 4-star maybe even before football season even starts. So, but that again, that's 3 guys that we're going to talk about here. We still didn't cover everyone that visited. There's more, but it's just maybe we'll get to it here in an upcoming episode, maybe the following week. But we're going to be talking on some 2025 guys that just recently picked up their offers. I think it was January 28th. They all received their offers. At least they publicly made it announced on Twitter. So we'll start with the first guy is Douglas Utu. I believe that's how you say it. 2025 5-star, number 17 overall, and the number 2 offensive tackle in the entire class, and the number 1 player in the state of Nevada. Plays at Bishop Gorman. Obviously, Oklahoma's got great ties to Bishop Gorman with DeMarco Murray, Javante Barnes, Jake Taylor, and those type of players. I mean, obviously, Jake Taylor's being on the offensive line. As a sophomore going in his junior year, he's already 6'5", 270 pounds. So again, it makes sense why he already has the hype and the expectations that he already does. He already holds an offer from Georgia, Oregon, Utah, and a few others. I mean, he's announced 12. So Oklahoma's throwing their hat in early on him. And I feel like Oklahoma as a whole is starting to identify 2025 guys, and they are sending out a ton of offers. What do you think about Douglas? And 6'5", 270 as a sophomore going into your junior year is quite the build.
Yeah, large human being to say the least. And this one's going to be interesting. I think Coach B and DeMarco Murray are going to do just fine in doing the best they can and getting him on campus multiple times and making sure that he understands he's a priority for the offensive lineman recruiting for Oklahoma. But, I mean, like you said, he's got plenty of offers already. Arizona State's also one of them. Georgia's already in on him. And Georgia's already picking up 2025 guys. So the longer his recruitment lasts, the better you should feel about Oklahoma being at least in the conversation. Because it seems like Georgia's just nonstop right now. If you can't get these kids to commit like a year early, Georgia's going to try to get them to pull the trigger much earlier than pretty much any other school around the country. And it's not like they're losing these 2025 guys either. We've seen guys around the country, if you just follow general recruiting, I think there was a 2025 kid that committed to USC, and like 2 months later, already decommitted because his recruiting process has barely started. But Georgia's got six or seven 2025 kids already committed. After they've committed, you really haven't heard about them doing much more in their recruitment. And I'm sure they're still having conversations, but they feel so good about being a Georgia Bulldog that it's going to be an uphill battle to try to get them away from that.
When you're back-to-back champs, that helps out a lot.
Yeah, I can't remember, and I guess maybe it's just a lack of maybe I had too much fun in college, but I can't remember Alabama having this kind of momentum, even when they won back to back, when we're getting recruits to commit so early in advance.
Yeah, and I do think that part of it is the NIL and the transfer portal now. I really kind of think it's more the transfer portal is if I don't commit and lock my spot in, what happens if they just get a transfer 4 or 5 star coming in and they don't need me anymore? I can't part of me wonders if that's playing a role in these decisions as far as expediting, just because, we didn't really talk about it, but the only player that Oklahoma signed yesterday or on the first was Taylor Hine, who they just recently offered. I mean, everyone else has been signed, and Oklahoma is not the only program like this. And I just wonder if that's part of the factor, or playing a factor. Not saying that you have to commit. You're in 2 years out, you have to commit, but I do wonder if that's a thought.
Yeah, it definitely has to be something that goes at least is either communicated by these coaching staffs to try to create some urgency for the players to commit. Because at this point, I don't think Oklahoma's not trying to push for commitments. I think they're up against so much and probably already had their signal caller, like I said, if it wasn't for the rumors with Lubby, but it's just going to be a matter of time at this point. Early spring going into the summer is probably going to be where they start picking up, a handful of guys before all the summer events start going.
True. So we're not done yet, but if you made it this far, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn the notification bell on. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Apple, Spotify, and TikTok. Everything's linked in the description below. And remember, when you like the video and you comment on the video when you're already subscribed, that helps us a lot so we get more people and we can reach a wider audience. So, all right, so moving on to the next guy. And you might have to help me pronounce this because I'm gonna probably butcher it. Sesu Alo. I don't know. How do you
So
say
my
it?
guess is Seyu Alu Fatuli.
All right. Say you Alo Fruitoli. Okay. That sounds pretty good to me. Again, another kid out of the Las Vegas area, plays at Bishop Gorman. According to his 247, he's 6'2", 250, but I believe I went on to his huddle and he said 6'2", 265. So, maybe he's put on some weight. He is a 2025 4-star interior offensive lineman, number 45 overall player, and the number 2 interior offensive lineman in the class. Again, Oklahoma offered him on January 28th. And he's already got a handful of other offers, 14 offers. Georgia threw their name in the hat. LSU's there, Arizona, Michigan, Tennessee, Colorado. Not all the big boys, but a lot of big time colleges have offered. And Coach B must have just hung up the phone with Douglas and picked up and called Say You and said, "Hey, come on, you both need to come play for Oklahoma," and offered him. What do you think?
I agree with that. That's how I've imagined the scenario in my head. He just decided, all right, it's time to just offer these guys in 2025. And again, another big boy, already 265 pounds as a 16-year-old. He's going to need to eat a few more pancakes over the next 2 years to try to get up to the 280, maybe even push the 300 mark before he graduates high school. With him being only 6'2", probably going to be pretty hard, but probably a guy that's going to have maybe kind of a Joshua Bates type of rise. This guy's already a 4-star, and as interior offensive lineman, it does not seem like they get rated very high. They get put in these rankings nearly this high, especially this early. So impressive dude, already putting some good stuff on film, making these recruiting platforms really look at him and make him be one of the few interior offensive linemen that's highly rated. But yeah, 6'2", I think is really my only concern with a lineman. Just kind of small. If he manages to grow a couple more inches, it's not like it's a big hit on his stock, being 6'2", but that kind of just limits his ability to move around the line. More than likely going to be a center or a guard, not, and I honestly probably a center if he stays at the 6'2", 6'3" stature.
Yeah, and we got to remember these kids are 16, so they very well might be able to grow 2-3 inches, and he's 6'5", coming to OU at 300 pounds.
You always hear about stories, mainly with basketball players, but they're like 5'11" when they're 15 or 16, and then now they're 18 going into college basketball, and they just grew to 7 feet tall. Doesn't happen often with football players, but never say never. So you say he might be 7'1" by the time he graduates high school.
Yeah. Yeah. So moving on, the last guy we're going to talk about is another guy from Bishop Gorman, is Landon McCumber. He actually played at Desert Pines in that area, and I believe he's just transferred over to Bishop Gorman. So he's at Bishop Gorman now. According to his Twitter profile, he's 6'3". 247 says he's 195 pounds. I bet he's about 200 pounds if I were to guess, give or take. Oklahoma also offered him on the 28th. And he's a guy that has a handful of offers as well, 15 offers. You got USC, Colorado, Georgia again, and Texas A&M, USC, Michigan. So schools have lined up for him as well. It seems like Georgia took the same approach as Oklahoma, and they already did it before Oklahoma, offered all three of these guys, at Bishop Gorman. And obviously, Bishop Gorman in the Las Vegas area produces a lot of talent on both sides of the ball. And this seems to be an emphasis with DeMarco Murray and some former players from that area being on the team. They're definitely trying to establish some serious roots there. And if you can get one or two of these guys, you really then begin to build a pipeline. What do you think?
Agreed. It is impressive that some of these guys already have so many offers from big time programs. Shows how good they are already at a young age. Georgia, man, that's what's standing out about the three guys that we've talked about with the offers. Georgia has been one of the first to offer. Not that Oklahoma is not behind by any means. These are 2025 players. There's so much time before their recruitment really starts to ramp up. But damn, Georgia, their scouting department is very good. It seems like at finding the guys that they're gonna start gaining a lot of buzz once they get into their junior years. And I think that's going to be one where we're going to have to watch out. Like, will Brent Venables' legacy and Ted Roof, sorry, will they be able to get in with a linebacker that Georgia's trying to go after as well? It's not easy to beat Georgia for defensive players, as we've seen over the last 2-3 years, and that story is not going to change as long as Kirby Smart's there. And I can't imagine within the next 10-12 years that Kirby Smart's not going to be the head coach at Georgia.
What's crazy is Georgia offered him on May 2nd of 2022. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if this is a tactic by them of, scouting really early. But when you're that elite of a college football program and you offer these kids literally 2.5 years before they ever have to sign their name on a dotted line at the earliest, and you're that good and you show up that early in their recruitment as a freshman. Yeah, as a freshman. They offered him in the spring of his freshman year, right? May of 22.
Yeah, no. He's going into his junior. This next year, he'll be a junior. So he's currently a sophomore. That was the end of his freshman year.
End of his freshman year. You got to think that a kid like that's 15 years old is like, holy cow. I just got offered by the University of Georgia, who just won the national championship, and now at this point are back-to-back. It's an interesting recruiting tactic. It kind of makes you wonder, though, that when you offer that early, I would imagine not every offer is truly committable, because they probably continue to evaluate, and then they might start realizing, hey, you know what, we offered you a year ago, but you're not our guy. That's the one thing is like you might see something in a ninth grader, but a lot of things can change.
Yeah, and I think most of these offers early on are to try to start building that relationship because we saw, and let's take the 2023 recruiting cycle, for example. David Hicks. I mean, outside of all the other factors, he had a very good relationship with the A&M defensive line coach that he's had for a
Mhm.
long time. And he had the same one with Todd Bates, but the difference was the one with the A&M coach, he's been at A&M the entire time. So he's been able to communicate like how the culture is growing and changing over the last, 4 years, 5 years, however long they've had that relationship. Todd Bates, on the other hand, went from Clemson to Oklahoma, where he went from communicating, look at how our defensive line is doing, to we're building something special in Norman. There is a different message that you're changing, that you're giving these recruits if you're a coach that has to move from one school to another. And it's not like it's a bad thing, but it can put you behind maybe a step or two where you were originally, like in those situations.
Yeah, you're not sending a consistent message because
Mhm.
circumstances have changed. So, no, that makes sense. So, I don't know. I mean, I thought it was pretty interesting that three Bishop Gorman kids got offered all on the same day. At least they publicly announced it all on the same day. Maybe that's not truly how it happened, but it appears that way. But that's all I've got. Do you have any final thoughts, or do you want to do the individual challenge?
I did want to bring up one player, and I've been looking for the name of this kid, but he's from Oklahoma. David Stone's best friend got offered like 2 or 3 days ago at this point, and shortly after Michigan State did the same. Now, I don't think that he's getting these offers because just because he's David's friend, but it is interesting that the two schools that are highest on David Stone's list, seemingly, in his recruitment are the two that offered his friend most recently.
Michael Patterson McDonald.
Yes, that's the guy.
Yeah, from Moore, or he
Mm-hmm.
plays at Westmore.
Yep.
Um, yeah, so he did get an offer from both OU and Michigan State. That is an interesting point to point out.
Yeah, and I'm not going to try to keep pushing this David Stone stuff every week or every video, but this recruitment is getting interesting and it's kind of frustrating. Mel Tucker's really he went from being kind of a cool coach to kind of sucking now. But I mean, they're doing everything they can to keep this interesting, and I don't think that people should be as confident. Not that you shouldn't be confident, but not as confident as you maybe were on David Stone, 3 months ago.
Yeah. Well, Mel Tucker's just going to be a thorn in our side. He's obviously establishing some good roots in the state of
Mm-hmm.
Oklahoma. So,
Yep.
anyway, you made it this far. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. Wait, do you want to do an video challenge, or is that your
In the
individual?
video, what's happening? Oh, well, the Pro Bowl is this weekend. You gonna watch? They're doing something different. I might give it a shot, but I'm not gonna like change my schedule to get in front of the TV for that one.
Yeah, I might just have it on in the background, but I don't know. Just doesn't do a whole lot for me. But
Yeah, agreed.
so anyway, you made it this far. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, turn the notification bell on, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Apple, Spotify. Everything's linked in the description below, and TikTok. And we will be sure to catch you guys. I would imagine definitely either Sunday or Monday, probably Monday, and we will catch you guys next time.